What's happening, people, and welcome to In the End Zone UK. Thank you for joining our weekly American football podcast. This is episode number 14 and still going strong. This week we'll be looking back on an action-packed game week 13 in the NFL. But before we get there, let me introduce you to the other half of the In the End Zone team. We're both at our headquarters today in Nottingham, England. Across the screen from me and just in the other room, it's Big Dave. How you doing, Dave?
Hello. Yeah, I'm good. A nice week off work. Growing this manly beard I've got going on. Look a little bit like Ryan Fitzpatrick at the minute. Feeling good.
Good growth there, Dave.
That's what she said.
Welcome to Big Dave. This weekly podcast, or this week's podcast, is going to be called, in the Christmas spirit, Ho Ho Ho, Merry Christmas. And that is directly related to the return of Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, quarterback at the Cardinals, came back this week after a few weeks off after injury, and he looks just as explosive as when he left. The Cardinals now sit atop of the whole of the NFL. So not just the NFC, not the AFC, but the Cardinals sit atop of the NFL with 10 wins and only 2 losses. So ho, 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 Merry Christmas to all of those Arizona fans out there. I'm sure there's plenty of them and a few bandwagoners as well as this season has continued. But he came back off an ankle injury and he threw for 2 touchdowns this week and ran for 2 more. Looked just as quick as he ever has done. And the Cardinals are paving the way in the NFL, paving the way. The next closest teams are Green Bay, I think, and Tampa. Green Bay, Tampa Bay, all the Bays, and the New England Patriots, all with 9 wins. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this week, Dave, we've got some injury news. I just wanted to recap on some of the major stories from this week. And it didn't end well this game week for a number of teams, unfortunately. And some of these injuries may have some playoff implications as well. So we'll wait and see. But just running through the list of injured players from this week, Dave. Adam Thielen, high ankle sprain at the Vikings. Out for a few weeks at the very minimum with a high ankle sprain. How important is that to the Vikings?
Oh, very important. I think you got Justin Jefferson, I suppose, and who's carrying the workload in terms of yards. But I think Thielen's like second in the league in touchdown catchers. So, which is like the quietest because I feel like he never scores them, but he always scores them. He's a big red zone threat, isn't he? So I think it could be a big. High ankle sprain. What's that? Probably 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it could be because they're going to be pushing for the playoffs, aren't they? So
they want to be. That's why
deal.
I think. Yeah, that's why I think it's got some pretty heavy implications because the Vikings are on the cusp. The cusp, so to speak. Oh, and bless you, Dave. Bless you. Bless you there, Dave. It's not
People
the Rona.
felt that next door.
That's Dave sneezing. It's not the Rona. It's just his other diseases acting up. It's a big one for Adam Thielen. I think that is, and it's a big one for the Vikings because Dalvin Cook is not doing too well either. And I don't think Justin Jefferson, as good as he is, because he's fantastic, I don't think he can carry that sort of half lame Vikings defense on his own. The second one, Daniel Jones with a neck injury. I know this happened the week before, but it's seemingly coming to light that it's probably a little bit more serious than one's thought because he's ruled out of the next game as well. So with you pushing, I say you, Dave, you and your Giants pushing for a potential just ever so slim playoff spot, what's the implications on that one? I think they're pretty huge considering what Mike Glennon looked like this week.
Yeah, he's. I think that's his done, to be honest. We're 2 games back now from Washington and the Eagles for that wild. So Washington are a wild card team. So it's looking like 2 teams from the NFC East are going to get to the playoffs. But I don't think I can't. I mean, we've got to play Washington, the Eagles, and Dallas again. So there's always hope because they're just an up and down team. But Mike Glennon's out, so he's got a concussion, so he's not playing. So
Right.
Jake Fromm, who, if any of you have seen QB1, which is like a Netflix documentary about, it follows like some high school footballers. He was on the very first series of that. He played at Georgia, got to the championship game in college and lost to Alabama, I think.
Alabama. So would that have been like Mac Jones or Tua
No, it
or
would have been
Deshaun Watson? No.
No, he was Clemson. I'm pretty sure they lost to. I mean, I'm not a college buff, I don't know, but he got to the thing and they lost. He was playing at Georgia. He wasn't a high draft pick. He had an awful combine. So he got drafted in like the 5th or 6th round to the Bills, and then we signed him off their practice squad last
week, wasn't it?
Last week. When
so Jake Fromm is going to be starting for the Giants.
Yeah, his first start in the NFL.
Wowzers.
I mean, I would rather have him start than Mike Glennon. Mike Glennon was god awful. So implications for us, I think it means that our 25% or whatever I gave the Giants last week
20.
is down to about a 3% now.
Right. After a loss and a Daniel Jones neck injury. Yeah, I suppose the maths.
Windows shut. Plastic thing at the top shut. But
you could maybe still just break.
No, it was just they just didn't put the window in properly and there's a bit of a draft. And that's what it is. So,
Fair play. So, yeah, Daniel Jones is out again with a neck injury. This is probably the biggest one, I think, the next one, in terms of playoff implications. Marlon Humphrey for the Ravens, who is their number one cornerback when healthy or when they've got every player back. Marlon Humphrey is a top-tier corner. He tore his pec in the last game. Season is over, including the playoffs. So that's got to have some implications on the playoffs, on it, Dave, in terms of the Ravens being able to hang with the likes of the Chiefs in the AFC, keeping Tyreek Hill locked down. Even, I mean, dare I say the Patriots, he is somebody you can rely upon in the defense for the Ravens.
Yeah, he's great. He's a great corner, isn't he? And yeah, like you say, he's the one that's going to be facing against Stephon Diggs. Is the one who's going to be facing against Landry if the Browns get in there, or is it Deontay Johnson for the Steelers? That's an absolute menace at the minute.
Yeah, Tyreek
Hill, Kelsey, all these great receivers in the AFC. He's the kind of number one. He was the number one corner on their team that would have been matched up with these people, but alas, no more.
So that definitely affects the Ravens' chances, and apparently contributed towards the reason why they decided to go for it at the end of the game in this last game week, where they were denied a 2-pointer to lose the game, which we'll talk about in On the Clock. Number 4 is probably not got much of a season implication for the team, but it's certainly a disappointment overall, and that's Jamal Adams for the Seattle Seahawks. He tore his labrum in his shoulder in the last game. His season is done, requires surgery, and he's not going to play any more games. What implications does that have, Dave?
It's obviously a big hit, isn't it? And it's even more annoying that you gave up so much for him that now you can. I don't know who. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on the Seahawks secondary, but who's going to replace him?
Step in at that position. We don't have a lot there. Marquise Blair or maybe Ugo Amadi, who tell me if you know any of those players. No, you don't. Ryan Neal maybe can play safety. So you could argue, or what you mentioned to me earlier was maybe our coverage will actually get better.
Yeah. The pressure on the quarterback will get worse. So
exactly. So
he's had 2 picks this year.
Yeah, he has. Jamal Adams is obviously a big part of our run-stopping defense because he's always in the box tackling the running backs, and he's able to get to a few tight ends as well. So, I mean, it's not going to have any playoff implications because we are out, but it's not a good thing to see. And like you said, the most frustrating thing is what we gave up to get Jamal Adams, and actually in 2 seasons he's had injuries. The 2 seasons we've had him, so 2 first-round picks, 2 injuries, not leaving us in a great place. And then finally, again, this probably has less an impact than any of them because this man plays for the freaking Jets. But he's the best player on their offense, I think, anyway, at this point in time. Corey Davis, wide receiver, ex-Tennessee Titan, now at the Jets. He's definitely their best receiver at the moment, whilst Elijah Moore develops. But Corey Davis has a core muscle tear, so he's torn something in his core. I wish I knew what one of those was, but he's torn something in his core. And
we've got a lot of padding, so it's all right.
We got padding in our cores, Dave. Yeah, I thought we might. But Corey Davis clearly hasn't got enough, and his season is also over. So any positives that the Jets wanted to take from having this sort of semi-dynamic wide receiver to complement a new quarterback that they're trying to understand and trying to cut loose in Zach Wilson is done for the season. So no implications because the Jets are shit, but it's obviously not going to help them win any more games, is it?
No. I've got one to throw to you.
Oh, go on.
Logan Thomas,
tight end for the Washington football team.
Yeah, I think he's tore his ACL and his MCL.
Oh.
I think that's what Borrow did. But that man, I'm sure he's done his Achilles as well. He is the Carson Wentz of
tight ends.
Of tight ends in the tight end world. But he can't stay here. He's an absolute menace. He caught a sick one-handed catch in the end zone for them this week, and then he's little yogurt body's failed him again.
Yeah, no, I mean that is a big one for a Washington football team who are at the moment, like you said, in a wild card position because he is he's such a big dude, massive, big-bodied target. He's quite quick for a tight end, can go up and catch those balls from Taylor Heineke. It's definitely not ideal for the Washington football team. I wish they'd rename their team pretty quick because I'm sick of saying the fucking Washington football team. Why can't they just? I don't know.
Themselves?
The Washington. I don't know. I was going to say something horrible then, but wankers, wizards.
The thing is, so they were the Redskins, yeah.
Yeah.
Why have the Chiefs not got to change their name?
I don't know. I think the Redskins is obviously a direct relation to their skin colour, so to speak. Whereas the Chiefs is you can be the chief of police.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. They're just a policeman on the thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's strange, isn't it? And then because I think there's a baseball team as well that's got the Indians.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I just think it's pretty strange.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people took offence to it or something like that. But there's plenty of things that begin with W out there. Wolves, Wizards, Wolverines.
Wankers.
Wellingtons. Just hurry up and pick a name. Fucking hell, NFL. Sort it out. Because the Washington football team, it doesn't sound right. I think I was talking to somebody the other day and I mentioned that the Washington football team and they were like, oh no, I know their football team, what they're called. And I was like, no, they're called the Washington football team. So, it's not helpful. It's not helpful, NFL. We're trying to run a podcast over here. Come on.
Yeah.
So that was the injury news for this week. And, it's not looking like a fun time for a number of teams. We will now use that to seamlessly transition into our returning segment, which is slap or sign. So to recap, in this segment, slap or sign, myself and Dave choose individuals from this game week that we would like to sign to our team. So people who have either performed well or impressed us, and slap somebody who has potentially also not performed very well, or that we just find fucking annoying. So, Dave, in this section, I'd like you to give me your first AFC sign.
Well, I'm going to roll. These are combined because these are in the same game.
Wow.
Okay. So, and they're both head coaches. So I'm going to sign Bill Belichick.
Very
nice. I'm going to slap Sean McDermott.
Fair play. So talk me through these decisions then. So
the game, in case anybody hasn't seen it, I'm not saying you should watch it because the quality of football was good. It was not. It was a throwback to the 1930s where they threw the ball 3 times.
Literally.
The Patriots, Mac Jones threw the ball. So Mac Jones, the quarterback of the Patriots. He threw the ball 3 times for 2 completions. And they ran the ball nearly 50 times. They won the game. And then Sean McDermott is the coach of the Buffalo Bills. They attempted to throw the ball multiple times and try and get the run game going. It just didn't happen. The reason I would slap him is because the Patriots ran the ball, like I say, nearly 50 times, and they still couldn't stop the run. They had 10 people at one point lined up in the box. So in the area which the player has to run through, they had 10 players in there, and they still couldn't stop him running the ball. So you should say, well, why am I not slapping the defensive coordinator? Well, I'm not slapping the defensive coordinator because, yes, his game was poor, but so the head coach, has the overarching say, and he was still trying to throw the ball. The game finished 14-10, I think, so it wasn't a high-scoring game. There was no need for them to try and do something different to what the Patriots are doing. The weather conditions were the worst I think I have ever seen. Oh, in fact, they were 100% the worst I've ever seen for a football game. Both team was trying to go for 2 points because they couldn't kick extra points from the 15-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
The initial kickoff by the Bills flew into the crowd in the second tier. That's how fast the wind. There was like 50-mile-an-hour wind. So we kicked the ball. Normally it would land in the end zone or just beyond the end zone. This ball cleared the end zone, cleared the first tier of fans and landed in the second tier. That's how hard the wind was blowing. When the Patriots punter tried to kick the ball, it went 15 yards. Yeah, there were torrid conditions. And after the game, Bill Belichick, when he's in the locker room doing the victory speeches or whatever, he said to his team, this is when you're all moaning about training when it's outside, when it's cold, wet, snowing, he's like, these are the days that it pays off, and this is the reason why we train in these shit conditions. So that when it comes to a game where one team's prepared and the other's not, the team that's prepared wins. Because the Bills are definitely a better team than the Patriots. Yeah. Across the field, they're a better team. They've got a better quarterback. They've got better running back. They've probably got on-par running backs. They've got a better defense. The Bills at the start of the season played 5 games and conceded 62 points or something. That they're a far better team, but they were outcoached. And after the game, McDermott was sat in the thing and he was saying, "Oh, it's not about Bill Belichick outcoaching me." 100% it was. The meme was him saying that it was not about him being outcoached, and then he went on for 5 minutes to say every way that he was outcoached by Bill Belichick. Yeah, which happens to a lot of people because Belichick is the GOAT of managers across all sports. So that is why I'm signing Bill Belichick and slapping McDermott.
Nice stuff. Rolled them into one. In which case, can you please give me your NFC sign?
I'm signing the other GOAT that used to be in New England and is now a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. I am signing Tom Brady.
You're going Thomas Brady-ious, are you?
Yeah. And I would take him at 400 years old, what he is now. I would take him as our starting quarterback. 100%.
Of course.
The guy's having an amazing season. He's probably the MVP at the minute, although some people are still saying that Aaron Rodgers should be the MVP.
I don't see that at the moment.
I think it's just because he's thrown about 2 interceptions and about 30 touchdowns. But Brady at the minute so I think Brady's going hard for the MVP. He threw the ball 51 times in the win against the Falcons. It is for a man who's 44 years old.
But he's making it work though, right? He's making it work. Throwing touchdowns for days.
Yeah, so he threw for 368 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did throw a pick 6 in the game.
That was a lucky one though, wasn't it? That was read by the defense.
Yeah, so they were trying to close out the half. He tried to throw a screen pass, but the defensive end wrapped around, saw it coming a mile off, I think, and just took it in for like a 3-yard pick six.
Yeah, I was going to say he had 3 yards to fall before he'd taken it in for a pick six. So it was
Yeah.
not really on Tom Brady, that one. I mean, it was, but in terms of it going for a 6, it wasn't.
Yeah, but so Tom Brady's thrown this. He's leading the league in passing yards and in touchdowns. He's thrown for 3,771 yards, 34 touchdowns. I think he's got to average 3 touchdowns a game for the rest of the season. There's 3 touchdowns a game, but he's got to score 4 in one of them.
Will he beat Peyton Manning?
No. He'll beat his. So his record at the minute is 50.
Oh, okay.
So that will take him to 51. So if he
Right.
scores 3 for the rest of the season, he'll finish with 50. He needs to throw an extra one, I suppose, to get above the 50 mark, which I think is probably a goal he's going for, and I think that's why he's throwing the ball so much.
I mean, that's interesting though, considering that, you know, if he is having an MVP season like you just mentioned, it's potentially one of the quietest MVP seasons ever, right? Because he's doing absolute bits and putting up pure numbers. If people want to navigate to our In the End Zone UK Instagram page, you will now start to see some of Dave's hard work, where we're now going to be putting statistical lines and imagery on top performers in the NFL, which we've just dropped today, and you'll see that Tom Brady is leading the majority of the passing and touchdown records at the moment, and it's definitely going unnoticed, I think, because he is definitely the MVP at the minute. And I would argue for a few other people being in the mix, but if you had to stop the season right now, it's Brady, and it's just because it's Brady that he's not getting the recognition.
I think so, and I mean, I think he's only won 1 MVP, league MVP. He's got 2, is he?
Yeah.
So this will be his 3rd, which would then like what the reason Aaron Rodgers wanted it so bad last year was because not many people got 3 league MVPs. And Brady, like I say, if Brady gets a 3rd one now, he's probably got 4 or 5 Super Bowl MVPs as well. I mean, the man's just he's having the Hall of Fame career of 3 blokes at the minute. So he's undoubtedly goated. So yeah, he is my sign for the NFC.
And then finish on your NFC slap.
Touched on it a little bit, but I'm gonna Mike Zimmer. I'm assaulting head coaches today.
You are. You're hitting all the old boys.
yeah, because there's any ones I can hit.
Including Tom Brady.
Yeah. So yeah, Mike Zimmer, he's getting slapped because he gave the Detroit Lions a win that they should not have had. I mean, yeah, they played great in the game or whatever, but you can't afford, when you're chasing the playoffs, to slip up to a team that has no wins. They had, going into that game, they had as many wins as me and you.
Yeah. They were as good as
sat on the couch. Yeah. They basically have played all them games and got the same chance against the playoffs as me and you. And he gave it up. He gave it up by going for a 2-point conversion. You know, just kick the extra point, get into overtime, and try and win the game. But instead now they've took an L to a team, like I say, with no wins. And to put that in perspective, Gerald Goff had never had a win without Sean McVay. So the coach that had him before, and the 11 games he'd had this season, he had never had a win without Sean McVay.
No wonder he went absolutely nuts on the sideline when he won that one.
They went ballistic.
That was like winning. They went more ballistic than I've seen teams go when they win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think obviously it means a lot to them, because I know they've been in close games. They've lost games by kicks, by
field goals.
Field goals, missed field goals. I think they even went for for a 2-pointer and came up short on that, which cost them a game.
They've been in overtime, I think, at least 3 times this season as well.
Four times in overtime, yeah.
The Vikings have had a run.
Yeah, so the Lions probably are a better team than what the record suggests, not by much, I don't think. But you can't give a team a win when you need one to secure yourself in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because imagine if they miss out now by a game.
Yeah. It's on the lines, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's fair. It's fair.
That's why the old purple codger is
Purple
getting
Zimmer.
I mean, if I lived in Minnesota, I think I'd be purple as well. It's pretty cold up there.
Yeah.
So that's
Zimmer.
my Zimmer frame. That's my slaps and signs. I will hand the ball, the notional ball, over to you. Who is your sign from the NFC?
My sign from the NFC this week is George Kittle.
Oh.
George Kittle, tight end for the San Francisco 49ers, played the Seahawks this week. So we had a divisional game against a rival of which we have generally got the better of in many recent years. I think we've beaten them 18 times out of the last 20. And we were able to do so again, much to my joy. However, much to my dismay, George Kittle, this hillbilly mother of a tight end, tore the arse out of our defense single-handedly as well. And this is why I'm signing him, because, you know, I like football and I am an unbiased podcast host. George Kittle is an absolute animal. Single-handed animal. He's somebody who just shows what a person of such a high caliber can do in any given position in football, and that is essentially change or wreck the game. George Kittle had 181 yards in the game and 2 touchdowns, and he was having the ball thrown to him by Jimmy Garoppolo, who is fucking wank. And yeah, Kittle made so much more of the balls that he was thrown than he should have made. The guy is a beast. He is quick. He's deceptively huge. He's strong. He can block. And he can clearly score touchdowns. I mean, I don't know if you saw it, Dave, but his second touchdown, he basically ran for like 54 yards, tiptoeing down the sideline whilst muscling off most of our Seattle defense because we're terrible. And then waltzed into the end zone for his second touchdown of the day and 180 yards. Fair play to the man. San Francisco have got an absolute superstar in George Kittle, and I dread to think what Kittle could be like if he was on the receiving end of somebody who could actually sling a ball. Put him in Seattle, for God's sake, and let him receive some balls from Russell Wilson. The man would be an absolute animal.
Yeah, he's a savage. There's a video of him. Some of his best clips are when he's blocking, and he flat packs elite edge rushers. There's one from this season when they played the Seahawks, the 49ers played the Rams, and he twists Von Miller into a pretzel and just body slams him. His blocking at the line has got to be like second to Gronk, you know, for a tight end. He pancake. He's probably, I don't want to say he's more efficient than Gronk because Gronk's such a huge animal, but he definitely does it with more style. Like he flat packs defensive ends and linebackers onto the goal line, so his running backs can just run in. I think that's why
it's more impressive because he's not got the physical stature of Gronk. He's obviously just got some sort of freakish power within him, but
yeah,
he's just angry and he plays angry.
Yeah, he'd be in the same. He'd be up there in that same conversation with Travis Kelce's like the best tight end in the league if he could stay healthy. If he played the full season, he would 100% lead the tight end position in yards. 100%.
Well, he had one of his most healthy seasons through 2 or 3 seasons ago, and Travis Kelce held the record for most yards by a tight end. Then Kittle broke it. Then Travis Kelce broke that the next year. So that's how good those two are.
Yeah. But one's got Jimmy Garoppolo thrown to him. The other one has got Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. You know, so like you say, put him with a super accurate, like put him in Green Bay. What would he do in Green Bay?
Unbelievable, yeah.
He'd destroy records.
Yeah.
Because
that's why I'm signing him.
Yeah, Rodgers makes Tonyan look good.
Exactly. So, George Kittle, please come to the Seahawks.
Who are you going to slap? Gerald Everett.
There you go, Cam.
Did I get it right?
I just called you Cam.
That's an insult to me. Sorry, Cam, if you're listening, but that's an insult to me.
So there we go. You called it, Dave. NFC slap goes to the opposite tight end on the opposite side of the pitch on that day, who plays for the Seattle Seahawks, my beloved team, Gerald Everett. Tight end signed this year from the LA Rams. Gerald Everett had 3 lost possessions in that game, 2 fumbles and 1 juggled interception, all of which, or at least 2 of which, were guaranteed touchdowns, basically. So one was Gerald Everett trying to take essentially just like a tiny little screen into the end zone, and he had it popped out of his hands as he went to go over the line on the 1-yard line. The second was thrown to him by Russell Wilson. The ball was in his absolute breadbasket, and he just, I don't even know, he tried to catch it with his armpits by the looks of things, and it ended up in the hands of an NFL 49ers player. And then he fumbled another one, of which we lost, which essentially, that's 3 lost possessions, all of which gave the Niners more opportunity to come back. And it was at the end of the game as well. So we basically were going to score to go up by 14 points. And instead, we gave the Niners the ball back with the opportunity to go down and draw the game. And Gerald Everett needs to be, I'd be benching him off the back of that. Not necessarily forever, but I'd be teaching him a lesson and saying, listen, pal, in one game, you do not lose the ball 3 times due to fumbles or poor catching. If you think about it, if every one of those was a scoring possession and we already beat the Niners by 7, we'd have put a hurting on the Niners. And I mean a hurting. And it looked that way as well, which is why it's so frustrating. I won't get into it now, but the Seahawks played a really good game of football on Sunday night, and Gerald Everett was the linchpin into it almost all unravelling. So he is catching a huge slap from me, and I'm hoping a huge chewing gummy slap off our head coach as well, Pete Carroll.
Yeah, I messaged him after he'd gave his third one up, because I think I remember sitting there watching it and laughing the first. Well, I didn't laugh the first time, but then when I heard his name the second time, I was like, paid attention, and then when the ball fumbled again, I was like, there's no fucking way. And they were like, commentators were like, Gerald Everett's fumbled again. I was like, what is this bloke on?
Yeah.
We've got one, like Ingram, he don't fumble, but like, he's the master of putting his hand on a ball to deflect it to a defender. Like, he's a master of it. He does it 3 or 4 times a season. So yeah, like, I know how frustrating that is.
It's super
frustrating. He
had
a shit game. He had a poor game, considering he's meant to be an improvement at the tight end position for you guys, because that's where you've suffered a little bit. The offensive line, your running back, your safeties, your corners. Yeah,
we're suffering all over the place, aren't we? But we still got the job done. So
yeah, and that's what it's about.
Exactly.
Right. Who is your? I guess that I was only taking the piss, and it's. There you go. From the AFC, who are you gonna sign?
I'm signing from the AFC, TJ Watt. What a beast!
He's shit. Why sign him?
He is an absolute animal. TJ Watt came into this week after having a few weeks of injury or illness or whatever it was. In this game, he had 3.5 sacks, 6 tackles, 3 tackles for a loss, and a forced fumble. The man had an absolute day. Those Watt brothers are built from absolute different iron, and he is just something else. That Steelers team with him and without him are totally 2 different teams. When he's on the pitch, you always have to give the Steelers a chance on defense, because he's a wrecking machine, man. That guy goes through brick walls, through linebackers, through tackles, through guards. He gets his hands on the quarterback, and he doesn't just get his hands on him. Here we go. He had another forced fumble in this game, 3.5 sacks, single destruction in a human being. He's obviously had the best teacher in the world as an older brother, JJ Watt, who, again, arguably one of the best defensive linemen in history, multiple defensive player of the year. And TJ Watt's just a beast. And he plays linebacker as well. So he's not just an edge rusher. Got loads of respect for those people, for those types of players, because it just takes more out of you in terms of energy, effort, knowledge. You've got to be able to do more than just rush the passer. You've got to be able to cover. You've got to be able to, read the quarterback's eyes. You've got to be able to tackle tight ends. And he's just a beast. And he's absolutely everywhere as well when you see him play. You just watch him and you'll hear his name almost every play. He's either at the bottom of something, punching something out, or dropping his nuts in the quarterback's mouth 3.5 times a game.
Yeah, he's a special bloke. He's elevated him, and he's now leading the league in sacks.
Yeah, number one.
So who got the defensive player this year? Was it Darnold?
Defensive player of the year last year was TJ Watt, wasn't it?
It was either Donald or TJ Watt. I'm going to Google it now quickly.
I think it was TJ Watt. I could be wrong, but I think it was.
Let me find out. But yeah, he's something else, isn't he? And like say, he's not just got the job of rushing the passer from the edge. They also drop him into coverage sometimes. He's always on running backs that have he sets the edge a lot, so he's not always rushing the passer.
Yeah.
Like the two that are behind him in sacks. You've got Nick Bosa and
Myles Garrett,
whose entire job is to rush the passer.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of other responsibilities as well.
And look who he's sacking this week as well. Probably one of the hardest men in the NFL to sack, Lamar Jackson. So, yeah, he did something dirty in this one. So that's my AFC sign.
Just trying to see who.
Well, whilst you're looking that one up,
go on. Who's your slap from the AFC?
So my slap from the AFC, we're on the same page again here, Dave. I'm slapping Sean McDermott, the Bills head coach. So I was going to interject earlier, but I thought I'd let you give your explanation and then I'll give mine. It's very, very similar, obviously, for the reasons that you mentioned. Maybe the main reason for me was the fact that he sat down at a press conference and essentially gave all the reasons as to why he said Bill Belichick didn't outcoach him and listed all the reasons as to actually why he was fully outcoached. But the Patriots went into the Bills' house in this one. So the Patriots went to the Bills where the weather was absolutely horrendous. And Bill Belichick, I mean, I know it sounds silly, right? But if you're playing Madden and you realise that you can't really throw the ball or whatever, you're going to run the ball like a bastard, aren't you? You just are. So part of me thinks everyone's saying, well, it's Mr. Bill Belichick. He's the best in the game. He's elite. He's the master. He's the master of game circumstance. And it's hold on. The game circumstance was that there was winds fucking greater than Hurricane Katrina flying through the Bills' house. Nobody could throw the ball. Nobody could kick the ball. What is your one solution? Your one solution is to put it in the hands of somebody who is probably big enough to not be blown over by the wind and run. And that's exactly what the Patriots did. There's no coincidence there. And for people who are listening, Mac Jones, the quarterback of the Patriots, threw the ball 3 times, as Dave mentioned. 3. In a normal game, in the first quarter, Brady had thrown the ball 20 times this week. He finished with 50-something. It's not normal. To throw the ball 3 times is mental. It was a very, very, very solid decision to make when you're throwing the ball 3 times. It's not just, we'll see what happens. It's we're not throwing this ball. Josh Allen has potentially the strongest arm in the NFL, quarterback for the Bills. But even he couldn't get anything going. So you've got to look at that and say, Sean McDermott, what were you trying to do? There was one way to win this game, and that was on the ground. And that's exactly what Bill Belichick did. He coached how a 16-year-old coach would have coached in that scenario. It wasn't smart. It wasn't profound. It was just, you got out-coached, Mr. McDermott. Deal with it. Your team is way more talented on paper than the Bills team is. The Patriots team is. It just is. their tight ends, their receivers, Dawson Knox, Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, Josh Allen as your quarterback. Defense is amazing as well. It's just the Patriots are more well coached, and like you said, this is why they coach in the cold. And did you hear about Mac Jones's secret weapon?
No.
What he was wearing underneath his jersey.
Oh, it's like a wetsuit or something, isn't it?
He was wearing a scuba suit. He was wearing a scuba suit underneath his jersey, and that was passed down by guess who?
Hey, Brady.
Tom Brady. In any cold weather circumstances, Tom Brady wears a scuba suit underneath his gear. He trains in it, he practices in it, and he wears it on game days. And he passed that down to Brian Hoyer, who passed that on to Mac Jones. That notion. And so I'm not saying that did anything for him this week because he threw the ball 3 times, but just those little veteran moves,
Yeah, well, he probably kept his brain functioning, and I almost signed Mac Jones, not because he did anything, because all he did was hand the ball off.
He did that well though.
But what he did do was what he was told to do. So I find with Mac Jones, there's zero ego.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't need to prove that he's got the strongest arm in the league because everyone knows he hasn't. Mm-hmm. He doesn't need to be he doesn't need to care. He don't care about stats. He cares about winning. Do you know what I mean? And that's I think what's good about him, that he can just do as he's told by Bill Belichick and just get on with it. You want us to run the ball? Guess what? I didn't give a flying hoot about the 13 yards I got from that game. Don't bother me. As long as we win the game. They did it. And they're on like a 5-game win streak. Donald won the Defensive Player of the Year.
It was Aaron Donald, was it, last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that might play a little bit into why TJ Watt's an absolute animal, but maybe he's a little bit pissed off about that because I think he deserved it last year as well.
Yeah, I think he did. Okay. And if that's everything, that's our slap or sign over. Good stuff. We're now going to move into our On the Clock segment. This segment, we're going to review the games that were played this week in game week 13 in the NFL. Quick little roundups on how the teams performed, the scores, and we'll touch upon a few things that we've already discussed earlier in the poddy. So, first game played, start of this week, was a Thursday night game. This was the only game I didn't actually see, Dave, so you are going to have to take point on this one. And this was the Cowboys from Dallas taking on the New Orleans Saints. Cowboys win 27-17. They go 8-4 in the NFC East, and the Saints drop to 5-7 in the NFC South. How did this one unfold, Dave?
This unfolded with I want to call him a turd, but I feel that's too nice of a term. Taysom Hill I would rather have Mike Glennon as my starting quarterback for the entire season than Taysom Hill. He is garbage. He threw 4 interceptions.
Wow.
Yeah, he threw 2. I mean, to look at he threw 19. He probably averaged a lot of yards for his passes. I
was looking at the box score here,
yeah.
And he's actually alone had 365 yards on his own.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely.
And 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. He 100 rushing yards, 264 passing yards of 19 attempts is pretty good. But the interceptions were so horrifically bad that it drowns out anything else that I saw. After that game, the only thing I took away from it was at the end of next season, will either they've restructured his contract because I think they've realised that paying him like £30 million a year for 4 years probably isn't a great deal for them. So they've restructured it to work on playtime and things like that. Mm-hmm. But his interceptions were awful. And I think that the only thing I came away from it thinking was that he will never be a starting quarterback, like, ever. Mm-hmm. No other team in the league thinks he's a starting quarterback. He to me is a shitter version of Jalen Hurts.
That's saying something.
Yeah. Because at least Jalen Hurts can run. I mean, this guy's like he's a third and short, fourth and one kind of guy. Do you know what I mean? Where you need that yard. He's a power runner. Where at least Jalen Hurts can move around the pocket and then run off. But yeah, no, he was awful. The Cowboys did what they needed to do. Dak Prescott 1 touchdown, 1 interception. They ran the ball well, and I think they just controlled the clock. They got 4 extra possessions. You know,
I'm assuming that's where that sort of win hinged. Then was it in the giveaways by Taysom Hill? Then
100%. I mean,
the Cowboys' offense didn't go out and win it. Then
no, the Saints gave them. The Saints actually had the lion's share of possession, which didn't really seem like that when it was on there. The Cowboys were 2 of 30, so neither team was good. I think the only thing I can remember from this game was like, because it was obviously late at night, I was laughing about the turnovers. But everything's fairly equal, you know. Total plays 69 for one team, 65 for the other. 6 punts, 6 punts for the Saints, 7 punts for the Cowboys.
What a bunch of punts.
Yeah, well, all I took away from it is the Saints have no quarterback, so they cannot be good and can't be competitive. They've been dominated by the NFC East this year, which is strange because nobody would ever say that. And the Cowboys aren't good enough to make a run in the playoffs.
Fair play. Nice summary.
That's my takeaway from it.
That's it. Okay. We move on to a game that we've basically just covered, so we'll just cover the box score, and that is the New England Patriots taking on the Buffalo Bills. That one happened most recently on Monday night. The Patriots moved to 9-4, and the Bills drop to decrepit-looking 7-5, considering the caliber that they've got. This one finished 14 to the Patriots, 10 to the Bills. Barely any points scored because of the weather, the rotten weather, winds howling. Mac Jones threw for a whole 19 yards. Josh Allen threw for 145 and a touchdown. And the Patriots had a number of big-time rushers, mainly Deontay or Damian Harris for 111 yards. And that was it. Ran the ball down the necks, got the win. Patriots move on, and they look like they're playoff bound.
Yeah.
Another game in the NFC was the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Chicago Bears. The Bears. And this one finished Cardinals 33, the Bears 22. Cardinals rise to the top of the NFC, to the top of the NFL at 10-2. And the Bears drop to 4-8. That's why this episode is called Ho 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 Murray Christmas, because Kyler Murray had 123 yards through the air and 2 touchdowns, and he also rushed for another 2 touchdowns in this game, taking his total to 4 touchdowns in a return off an injury. Cardinals look as powerful as ever, albeit they were only playing the Bears, who are shockingly terrible. And they got the job done. And the Cardinals, Dave, they must, if you're going to power rank anybody in the NFL, it'd be really, really tough not to put them near the top, because their defense, they had 4 picks in this game. They picked off Andy Dalton 4 times. They constantly get takeaways. The speed they've got on defense is unreal. The skill positions they've got on offense is unreal. They're going to be a real tough team to handle in the playoffs, and they're on their way, aren't they?
Oh yeah, they're definitely a shoe-in. I mean, Murray doesn't look like he had a great day, but his passing touchdown to DeAndre Hopkins was a beaut. Hopkins made the catch. It was a bit, he had to stretch for it, you know, but it was a nice play. Like you say, he just controlled the ball well. They're such a different team with him quarterbacking them, because he's just so hard to get hold of. And the Bears, I mean, the more games the Bears lose, the better it is for me, because we've got the draft pick. But I'm not sad to see them lose. I'm not happy to see the Cardinals win.
I mean, Andy Dalton throwing 4 picks in that game is embarrassing, isn't it? It's embarrassing.
Yeah, well, they've already said they're starting Jalen Hurts next week.
Have they?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised, but I mean, what we're going to say a fall from grace, but oh well, we don't need to talk about it too much. It's just that Andy Dalton used to be actually a middle of the pack, half decent, could get you into the playoffs if you really needed quarterback. And at the moment, he looks like me throwing a football.
But ginger.
Just more ginger. Yeah.
More
so we
ginger
move on. He's a lot thinner as well, that's for sure. I'd fancy my chances if we got into the fisticuffs though. We move into the next game, which is the Colts, Indianapolis, taking on the pathetic Houston Texans. The Colts went into this one 7 points in the first quarter, 7 points in the second quarter, 7 points in the third quarter, 10 points in the fourth quarter. What do you reckon the Texans did, Dave?
They put up as many points as me and you did, that's it. They dropped a
not
big
in
old...
the first, not in the second, not in the
donut.
third, not in the fourth. Big old goose egg, big old Dunkin' Donut. Colts win 31-0. Colts go to 7-6. Texans fall to 2-10. The opposite of the Cardinals. Ho, ho, ho. No Merry Christmas for the Texans. They are shit. And
their quarterbacks are fucking atrocious. Tyrod Taylor, 45 yards. Davis Mills, 49 yards. Couldn't even muster 100 yards between them.
It's absolutely pathetic. God. And Jonathan Taylor switched it on yet again with 32 rush attempts. 32, bear in mind, that's a little bit excessive. When they've got 3 decent running backs on their roster, they don't need to be giving him the ball 32 times for him to go and pop his ACL. I would be having words with Frank Reich after this game and saying, listen, bud, you were playing the Texans. They're only the fucking Texans. You blew them out. Why are you giving Jonathan Taylor 32 attempts, if nothing else but to try and seal him an MVP deal or something like that? He had 143 yards and 2 touchdowns because he's an animal. But nevertheless, this is the Dave special, Dave. This is the Dave special. Overloading running backs, messing them up.
When will they learn, eh? When will they learn?
Just start need to listen to this podcast, don't they?
Douchebags.
Come on, Frank, right. On to the next one. Chargers, Bengals. Great game on paper in the AFC. Chargers win an exciting one in Cincinnati. 41-22. The Bengals fall to 7-5. The Chargers rise to 7-5. What happened in this one?
I think Joe Burrow came out slow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he threw 2 early interceptions, and I think it was just in his head from there on. Yeah, they pulled it back a little bit, but for the first sort of quarter and a half, they were awful. Just couldn't seem to get anything going. And then every time it flicked onto the red zone, Justin Herbert had thrown a fucking 97-yard fucking nuclear bomb from one end of the field to the other, and it was caught. And he just has these games, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. We're literally on the exact same page there, because I was about to say the same thing as you, because all I saw when I switched on the red zone was just Herbert in this stance, literally like cocking back the longest pass we've ever seen and just unleashing it towards some random bloke about fucking 3 miles away, and he came down and caught it. Exactly right. Herbert can have one of those days where he just puts monster passes on his receivers, and today was not a good day for the Bengalis.
No, which is strange. I think the Bengals have got the better team.
Yeah, I do actually as well.
I just think Burrow, coming off such an emphatic win last week against the Steelers, to put this piss poor performance on against the Chargers, and the Chargers put a footy burger on them.
Footy burger.
dropped a footy burger on them.
Did you see Joe Burrow's pinky finger?
Yeah, no, he obviously hurt his finger, didn't he?
It was like a full-on wall sausage.
But he were playing shit and he was throwing interceptions. He threw them interceptions, I think, before he hurt his finger.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah. So
no excuses there. Then.
Don't want to hear it. You Macaulay Culkin looking gimp.
He had like a Cumberland sausage as a little finger.
I know, yeah. Put a glove on and took it off. Get a grip. So yeah, that was that game.
Yeah, that was that game. So both quarterbacks on the stat sheet had a reasonably good game. 300 plus yards each. Herbert was the man that came down with the 3 touchdowns. The Burrows 1 though. So we move on and we move back into the NFC. A lot of NFC versus AFC. Not NFC versus AFC, but a lot of AFC versus AFC and NFC versus NFC games this week. This one we've spoken about already, and this was the Vikings taking on the Lions. The Lions from Detroit getting their first win of the season against the Vikings from Minnesota. Vikings lose 27 to the Lions 29. Jared Goff, I think he's been very, very nicely and sympathetically given the NFC Player of the Week in this one. He threw 296 yards and 3 touchdowns. I suppose he did show some clutch in that final drive and a lot of mustard to be able to get the win. Kirk Cousins had 340 and 2 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson put up another 182 yards in this game. He's a freaking beast.
Phenomenally is. He's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
So
CJ Ham has the best name in the league.
CJ Ham.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quality player.
He'll be on the table at Christmas. But yeah, I mean, not much else to say about it. The Vikings threw this one away. We know this because Mike Zimmer's just been slapped by Big Dave. And the Lions take the win. And Jared Goff, I think the coach of the Lions, as much as I slapped him a couple weeks ago, he deserved that win. You could see how much it meant to him. The man was bawling his eyes out after getting it. And they've been in some close games, so it was about time that the Lions eventually got the job done. And the Vikings, and I've said this from the very start of this season and last season, but their clutch level is like a -10. They have got no clutch whatsoever. If the big game's on the line, Kirk Cousins goes to shit, and the Vikings coach goes to shit. They've got no. I mean, how do you describe clutch, Dave? Somebody asked me this the other day, and they were like, "What do you mean by clutch?" And I was like, "It's like how would you describe it?"
In football terms, it's a game-winning drive. Like that's clutch. Do you know what I mean? Like a game-winning drive, or
when the pressure's on,
field goal. Yeah, when the pressure's on, and you've got to put. So clutch isn't. Like we were talking about this in basketball because somebody was saying like that Steph Curry's not clutch or whatever. Being clutch isn't if your team's drawing and if you get this you win, because there's no pressure. Because if you don't get it, you go into overtime,
Mm-hmm.
Being clutch is like being down with 45 seconds to go. You're down by 2 points. You're down by like, I don't know, 4 points. Mm. So you need a touchdown. Driving the field and getting it. Mm-hmm. That's clutch. Yeah. These quarterbacks are these game-winning drives.
Yeah, delivering under pressure, basically. Yeah,
that's clutch. We're doing it in the Super Bowl clutch. You're right. The Vikings. It's not just the Vikings. It is the city of Minnesota that is just not clutch. Their basketball team has had like so many number 1 picks where they get to pick the superstar of the draft, and they've all done this. Absolute wind.
Dropped an absolute wet turd on them.
We said it last week about somebody. Kirk Cousins is not that guy. He's just he's the steady guy. He'll get you to the playoffs at 10-6, but then when it comes to the playoffs, the pressure comes on.
That's it.
He absolutely shits his dick out.
If you could buy clutch, the Vikings would be a team that would be amazing if they had it. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, of course they would.
Amazing. But they just haven't got it. So, and it might come from the fact that they've got that old crusty old Ute as their head coach, Mike Zimmer, because he's about as clutch as, the Crypt Keeper.
What are they like most known for? What's the Vikings most known for?
Fucking TV show in my eyes.
No, it's the fucking Miracle in fucking Minneapolis, isn't it?
Oh, right, yeah.
Where it took an absolute blown stinker of a tackle for them to get a win.
Playoffs. Yeah, it's true.
Absolute shitters.
So anyway, that was the Vikings. Moving on, this is a terrible game of 2 terrible teams, so we will spend as little time on it as possible. But the Philadelphia Eagles, led by Gardner Minshew, took on the New York City Jets, led by the 11-year-old Zach Wilson. Eagles won again. It seems to be a bit of a running theme at the minute. Eagles won again. They go to 6-7. They won 33 to the Jets. Very, very poor attempt at 18. They were shut out in the second half entirely. Zach Wilson came out actually looking pretty decent in his opening couple of drives, threw for 226 yards and 2 touchdowns. Gardner Minshew, the backup quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, he came out and had actually a really good game. 242 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dallas Goedert had 105 as a tight end and 2 touchdowns. And that was kind of the tail of the tape. It's, they rushed for 120 yards on the ground with Miles Sanders. They had 2 touchdowns through the air with Dallas Goedert, and the Jets, albeit responding early, couldn't respond late, and so the Jets fall to 3-9. Eagles rise to 6-7. Game is over. The only funny thing to take from this is that if you look at a picture of Baker Mayfield next to Gardner Minshew, it looks like Baker Mayfield is trying to be Gardner Minshew. Stupid little tash, bandana around his head. They've both got these little pea-head, squashed up little fucking stupid faces, and Gardner Minshew's better than Baker Mayfield.
100%. I was about to say, I would take Gardner Minshew at the Giants in a fucking heartbeat.
Yeah, he's not bad.
After this season, if they oh, Daniel Jones ain't the guy, which it's looking more and more like he's not, I would be like, fuck this. Like, let's give it somebody who just does not give a fuck.
Yeah.
And we're going to sign Gardner Minshew and be like, do you know what? For a year, until there's a good quarterback draft, this is your franchise, kid.
Yeah.
Have at it.
Yeah, go build around him.
I want to see what you can do. Because do you know what? He looked fucking phenomenal in this game.
It did look good.
Which was frustrating. I weren't cheering for the Eagles because I would rather spoon my eyes out and then fucking sit on a Christmas tree naked. I would quite like Gardner Minshew. I liked him when I thought he got a rough deal at the Jags. And
he did a bit,
the Jags now would have had a better season if they'd have set Trevor Lawrence behind him.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah.
Anywho.
On to the next one. We've got the Buccaneers, the reigning Super Bowl champs, taking on a team that is absolutely not reigning anything but dog turds, and that is the Falcons. So Atlanta Falcons taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They kept it relatively close in the first half, I suppose, the Falcons, to give any kind of credit to them. They scored 17 points to the Buccaneers 20. But the GOAT just turned it on, didn't he? He just dialed it up. He sat there, he looked at his knees as he normally does, and he went, do you know what, Matt Ryan? I've had your pants many times. I'm going to have them again. And the Falcons didn't score another point in the second half. The Bucs put up another 10 to win 30 to the Falcons 17. Brady throwing 368 yards and 4 touchdowns, getting a sign from Big Dave. And Chris Godwin, what a day. He caught the ball 15 times for 143 yards. So Brady found the men that he likes to throw to, and that is Rob Gronkowski for 2 touchdowns, Chris Godwin for 15 receptions, and Matt Ryan, a.k.a. Earthworm Slim, can't find flipping anything in the backfield.
I mean, everybody kind of spoke about it, mate. Brady's the GOAT. Matt Ryan's not. I told you, it's not Matty Ice. Matty Tepid Water.
On to the next one. We've got the LA Rams. LA Rams taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the Rams were on a 3-game losing streak going into this one. And if there is any way to get a nice little kickstart into your season and get another win under your belt, that is to play the woeful Jaguars. Jaguars fall to 2-10. I actually said Jaguars in an English accent, which just sounds freaking weird. So the Jaguars fall to 2-10, and the Rams from LA rise to 8-4. Jaguars scored 7 points to the Rams 37. What happened in this one, Dave?
The Rams took a huge shit on Florida. I'm just looking, there's absolutely nothing. I mean, Trevor Lawrence has got absolutely nothing to work with. He might as well be out there with him, an offensive line, but the offensive line's from high school because they were shit. Robinson's a good running back, but I think he limped off injured in this game.
He got benched.
Yeah. They're out without Travis Etienne, who they signed, obviously, who tore his ACL. Look at, you tell me if any of these are a number 3 wide receiver on any team in the league. Treadwell.
No.
Chenault.
Laviscus. He's shown a little bit of promise, but no.
O'Shaughnessy.
Never heard of him. Is he a tight end?
Could be. Yeah, number 8.
He is. Yeah.
Jones.
Marvin Jones, yeah. He couldn't even get it done with Matt Stafford, so never going to get it done with Lawrence.
Mickens, Tavon Austin. You know what I mean? Like, the team is fucking shocking.
Good dump truck that is.
If you'd have put him on the Patriots, he'd be doing exactly the same as what Mac Jones is doing. So he's just at a real shit end of the stick, like all number 1 picks do. But suck it all, big lad.
I know. I feel like every time we look at these stats, right, I feel like I look at this number and I see it every week. I'd be interested to go back and have a quick look. Maybe not today, but Trevor Lawrence, 145 yards, no touchdowns. I feel like I see that stat every week.
Yeah.
I can see 1-4 something with no touchdowns next to it, and I'm like, you poor bastard, can't get it done. And on the flip side, you got Matt Stafford. You got an absolute franchise of fucking superstars. Yeah. Matt Stafford with 2,000.
Sony Michel for 121 yards. Cooper Kupp 129 yards.
Matt Stafford 295 and 3 touchdowns. Odell Beckham with a touchdown in this game.
That was a sympathy touchdown as well.
It was, wasn't it? But he still went up and got it. Fair play.
I need it because I needed a fantasy thing, but yeah. Yeah, it was a pointless game. If anybody bet on the Jags to win that game, you're brain dead.
Indeed. So, onward to the Washington football team. I'm going to call them the Washington Wolverines. The Washington Wolverines football team.
No, I don't like it. Washington window cleaners is what I'm going to call them.
Washington window. Okay.
Until they come up with a name, they're going to be now known henceforth.
The Washington
window cleaners.
All right, that's it. It's sticking. That's it. In the End Zone UK has renamed the Washington football team the Washington Window Cleaners until further notice.
An even better one. They're the Washington Wind Socks. That's what they're going to be called. Because they've got no, like, I'm having a pie that lands on an airfield going, what's that sock saying over there? Yeah, we're good. Pointless. You know what I mean? What is it? Yeah. 1920s. Get a grip. The Washington Wind Socks.
So the Washington Wind Socks take on the Las Vegas Raiders. This one was a bit of a fucking shit fest and finished Washington Wind Sox 17, Las Vegas Raiders 15. Raiders had 2 field goals and then they managed to put something together towards the end. Josh Jacobs rushing touchdown and the Washington football team, Tyler Heineke had 196 yards, 2 touchdowns. Logan Thomas, one of those receptions and then injured himself. Really, really not an exciting game for the neutral fan. Hunter Renfrow, I mean, did you watch this game much, Dave?
Yeah.
Because all I saw was Derek Carr dropping back into the pocket, seeing from what I could see was countless open receivers, Deshaun Jackson being one, I can't remember who else he had on there as well, and all he would do was throw an absolute stinker towards Renfrow, who was like double covered. And somehow Renfrow's good enough to make some of those catches and come away with 9 receptions for 102 yards. But he missed so many open receivers in this game that would have gone for like big gains / touchdowns. And I just don't know what Derek Carr's looking at sometimes. I feel like he just has to go to Renfrow almost like exclusively.
Well, he's only we're past week 6, aren't we? So he's not good anymore, Carr. So I don't know what he sees. I don't know, maybe he's got some kind of double vision or whatever. But I mean, they had a chance to win it at the end, and they flopped it.
Yeah.
And Taylor Heineke, the more like I look at him, the more I despise him. He looks like a PE teacher.
He does. Yeah, he does.
Like a primary school PE teacher, doesn't he? Like, what's the guy got going on?
Hey there, I'm Tyler Heineke. I'm your physical education teacher.
Yeah. So I don't know what the Raiders could have won it at the end, but they flopped it, which caused me to a heart attack because we got slapped hard by the fucking Dolphins.
And then to add even more insult to injury to the Raiders, Kenyon Drake, their second running back, snapped his ankle in this game, went out for the rest of the season. Didn't talk about that earlier, but he's also gone as well now. Which, if we were earlier in the fantasy league, that would have worked out well for me because I've got Josh Jacobs. But methinks I'm getting the wooden spoon. Anyway, on to the next game, and that was the Ravens versus the Steelers. We've spoken about this one a little bit anyway, and the Ravens went into Heinz Field. Yes, the Steelers are named after Heinz beans, and they look like they should be as well, because it looks like Ben Roethlisberger has eaten 600 cases worth of those Heinz beans with little sausages in them, because he's a pure pudding. And the Ravens lost. The Ravens lost to that fat, bearded, Santa-looking mother licker. And I guess you have to put this one on coach a little bit, because he went for it on the final play of the game. They could have kicked a field goal, not a field goal, sorry. They could have kicked a PAT, an extra point, to take it to overtime. But John Harbaugh decided to roll the dice, and instead they just couldn't get it done. So the Ravens lost 19 to the Steelers 20. It was a pathetic affair. The Steelers scored 17 points in the last quarter of the game and 3 all the rest of the game. So I don't know how they've managed to switch it on, but they did. Nobody looked good in the game. Nobody really. I think that Deontay Johnson you mentioned earlier looked okay. Receiver for the Steelers. He had 2 touchdowns and 105 yards. But did you see anything that you liked in this game, Dave? I really didn't.
Not a thing. And how many times this season has the red zone been on when we've been watching it, and the Steelers and the Ravens games go to like half time and no one scored a point?
Yeah.
Or like halfway through the second quarter, somebody finally scores a point. They're not doing anything in the playoffs. They can't put the points up. They can't really stop the points. So whichever one of them, even if both of them make the playoffs, I don't expect a lot from them.
No, me neither. Okay. One more game until we talk about our own team's games, and that was the Monday night game. Oh no, it wasn't. Sorry, it was the Sunday night late game being played at Arrowhead in, help me out, Dave. Where is Arrowhead?
Kansas.
There we go, Kansas City. And that was the Broncos taking on the Chiefs. So the Broncos from Denver taking on the Chiefs. And this one finished Broncos 9, Chiefs 22. Looking at the stat line, though, I mean, Patrick Mahomes didn't throw for a touchdown. He rushed for one, but he only had 184 yards. He is on a streak at the moment, which is not looking fantastic as quarterbacks go. You know, he's not really throwing many touchdowns, and it seems to be that they're leaning on their defense to get a lot of this done, which at the start of the season would have been laughable. What do you reckon?
I don't. There's something wrong in there. He's not fell off a cliff. He's fell off the edge of the earth. I think I don't know what his weapons haven't changed really. He's lost Sammy Watkins.
Yeah.
He's got Clyde Edwards-Helaire back. He's got his running game is coming back. But he just doesn't seem to be the Patrick Mahomes that some people love. I just don't. I mean, I'm happy a little bit that he's this golden child who was gonna maybe take Brady as the GOAT and go for these Super Bowls and stuff like that. It just does. If they play like this, they're not getting to the Super Bowl. I think they're probably the third favourite now in the AFC behind the Bills and the Patriots.
Yeah. I mean, one positive thing to say about the Chiefs, I suppose, is that at the start of the season, it was their defense that they were having problems with, and then it flipped quite quickly to be being Mahomes and the offense. If they were able to, by the end of the season, tune both of those together, then again, you've got a team that will probably be pretty dirty to deal with. They've kept a lot of reasonably decent teams now to minimal points over the last few weeks. They only conceded 9 here against the Broncos. Not that the Broncos are great, but they have been winning games. And so, yeah, I mean, Teddy Bridgewater had 257 yards, but only 1 touchdown.
He was shocking. That stat line doesn't tell how bad he was. He was awful.
Does it not?
No, he was awful.
Fair.
But I mean, we'll see, innit? Like you say, like none of these games matter. I mean, they all matter to get to the playoffs. But when the playoffs come, none of these games will matter.
No.
And if he throws 4 touchdowns a game throughout the playoffs, who really cares? He's got his regular season MVP.
Yeah.
He's got a Super Bowl. He's got a Super Bowl MVP. You know what I mean? He knows. We all know he's good.
And they are still winning as well. I mean, the Broncos are 6-6 now, and the Chiefs have gone to 8-4. They've got some of the best records in football at the minute. 8-4. It's not an astounding record, but they're winning somehow.
Yeah.
So, so that's that. Dave, take us home from your side. The Giants.
Yeah,
New York,
I'm going to be very quick on this because
taking on Miami Dolphins.
We were awful. This was easily the worst game we've played this year. Didn't score 1 touchdown, got 3 extra points, 3 field goals. And to say the game finished 20 to the Dolphins and 9 to the Giants, the Dolphins weren't anything special. And I genuinely do think, I said this to you earlier, that if Daniel Jones did play, it would have been a lot tighter because Mike Glennon is so poor. Like I was watching the Red Zone on TV and I had the Giants game on my phone, like I always do. And I think at half time, I just turned my phone off. I went back to it maybe like half an hour later when or 15 minutes later when
calm down.
I'd stopped wanting to eat my phone, but Mike Glennon is so ridiculously bad. You can't even describe him. He's not a backup. He's nowhere near good enough to be a backup. The guy's got a neck longer than a giraffe. So he's like 6'7" or 6'8".
He looks like he swallowed a lamppost, doesn't he?
Yeah. He's a tall guy, so you think that gives him the advantage of being able to see over all of the offensive line and the defensive line, and if somebody's open, find him. But no, he routinely threw passes behind people, in front of wide open receivers. And I genuinely think if he was healthy, he wouldn't be starting this week anyway. They'd be starting Jake Fromm. So for me, his career is done in the NFL. I don't think we definitely won't be having him back next year.
No.
Saquon Barkley had a bit.
I was literally just about to ask about Saquon because I can see here he had 11 attempts for 55 yards, which isn't too bad. It's like 5.4 yards a carry or something. But why you only rushed 16 times?
I think we're chasing the game. We're just trying to. We had so many 3 and outs. It was unbelievable. I mean, how many punts did we have? Riley Dixon as well. Our punter is shit. So awful. So both teams had 6. So I mean, they weren't great either. Tua, Teddy Bridgewater. Who else? There's a few quarterbacks in the league who will never throw the ball over 10 yards. It is so frustrating to play against teams like that. I don't care if we're playing the Seahawks and DK Metcalf pulls off an 80-yard run. It is frustrating, yeah, but you're not getting poked to death by a bit of bamboo for like an hour. It's so incredibly dull to watch as they just sap the clock. But yeah, he threw 30 passes for 244 yards. I don't even know what his average is, don't tell me on this, but he's so fucking boring to watch. He's a boring quarterback. And what I'm going to say,
he had 3 receivers here. With Jalen Waddle had 11 targets, Mike Gesicki had 11 targets, Wilson had 8 targets. That was more than any of your players had, and that was 3 different players that had more.
He's just I feel like we've been killed against them this year by having these. We've played the Dolphins and the Broncos, and they play the same way. It is the most boring football to watch. And if I was a fan of their teams, I'd be as livid as them with the fact of how shit the Giants quarterback play is.
Yeah.
But at least we try and throw the ball downfield. They're not even attempting to do that. No wonder he's Tua's passing like percentage for the year was like 80%. Yeah, because he's only throwing 3-yard passes.
Mm.
You know, he's relying on run after the catch, which he's getting because he's got some decent receivers.
Jalen Waddle looks very good.
Our receivers are better than theirs, hands down. Our tight ends, Gesicki and Ingram, I don't know who would I rather have, probably Gesicki. But we're just not passing the ball to him. That's why it's so frustrating to be like a Giants fan. I go back and forth, and some games will have like, you ain't ever getting a good game of Mike Glennon here, let's be fair.
Nope.
Nope. Why we didn't keep old Cole McCoy out, I guess it was a money thing, but this week, hopefully, do you know what I mean? We get the same thing from, at least hopefully From will be able to, hope he cuts fucking dishes and dives and cuts, because I can't watch that shit again that we saw last weekend. But going back to Barkley will be if Barkley had had double the amount of rushes, he'd have had a 100-yard game.
Yeah.
He had a couple of runs, one where he broke through and went for like 20-odd yards, and then he had another one where he got like a 10 or 11-yard run, but he did some like swanky little jump cut thing at the end of it. We need an offensive line, and if we draft anything other than an offensive line with our 2 first-round picks, I'm going to punch something very hard. That's the only thing. We don't need edge rushers. We don't need fucking quarterback. We don't need running backs. We need protection so the quarterback can actually see what we've got, and Saquon Barkley can hopefully carry the team. Because at the minute, there's just no hope, I don't think.
Yeah,
that's it. Great game. It's fantastic.
That's it. It's a depressing one. It's a depressing one for Dave. After, the Giants have been playing with his emotions of potentially been showing promise to get into the playoffs, and that loss there might have just dead and buried you, just like the Seahawks.
Oh, with 100%.
And so that moves us into the last game of the week, and that was the 49ers taking on the Seattle Seahawks. San Francisco against Seattle, from Lumen Field in Seattle, and for the first time in what feels like a real long time, Seattle Seahawks get a win. Seattle Seahawks get a win and rise like the Seahawks that they are to a strong 4-8 in the NFC West. And the Niners,
good as the Giants,
we're just as good as the Giants, Dave. Absolutely. And do you know what? At the moment, that's not an insult nor a compliment to either team. We'll take it. And the Niners fall to 6-6. So, I mean, this was a weird game. But when I say a weird game, actually, if people want to go and watch an interesting game of football that has pretty much everything that you want to see in it, this is the game to go and watch, because this game had everything. So the first points of the game, well, actually, just to talk before even that, there was a horrific injury at the start of the game on a kickoff return, whereby I can't remember the guy's name, but he's a kick returner for the Niners, ran into one of his own men, and his neck bent forwards, backwards, and sideways all at the same time. And he ended up having to, they had an ambulance called on the field, and he ended up being carted off to A&E, and he was kept overnight. And apparently he's doing well now, and he's recovering, etc. But his neck bent and snapped in ways that you can't imagine, like a pretzel. So that started the game. But then to actually get into the action, the first points of the game was a direct snap on a fake punt to Travis Homer, who ran it in for 77 yards or 70 yards on a touchdown. So that was a trick play cooked up by the old man himself, our head coach, Pete Carroll, and that took us to 7 points to the Niners zip. And then as the game unfolded, the Niners returned fire with a pair of touchdowns, George Kittle taking one, Elijah Mitchell running for one, and it just kept being pretty back and forth. Really, Wilson had a good game in this. He threw for 30 passes of 37 attempts, 231 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. But as we mentioned, when I slapped Gerald Everett earlier, the interception was not his fault. The ball was in his chest. It should have been a 3rd touchdown for Russell Wilson and a touchdown for Everett, but instead the man coughed it up, and it was an easy pick for one of the Niners defenders. And the game just kept on rolling. But there was a safety in this game, Dave. Carlos Dunlap for the Niners, for the Seahawks grabbed hold of Jimmy G in the end zone, and we had 2 points from a safety. And then we had 3 fumbles from Gerald Everett and all sorts. Russell Wilson was sacked numerous times, and Adrian Peterson all day, the GOAT, one of the best running backs of all time, just signed to the Seahawks squad, ran for a solid 11 attempts of 16 yards, which is pathetic, which is what I said we would get from him. But he did score a touchdown, so I guess there's that. And realistically, it was nice to see the Seahawks come away from a game that could have been lost very easily with a win, basically. Tyler Lockett did what he normally does. Nice to see a bit of chemistry coming back between him and Russ. He dropped a lovely rainbow teardrop pass into the end zone into Lockett's hands for a TD. DK Metcalf has been very quiet the last 5 weeks. He's not done a lot. We had our rookie 2nd round pick, Dwayne Eskridge, receiver, score a nice little, I think it was like a 15 to 17 yard touchdown in the red zone. So it's nice to get him involved because he's been injured as well. So generally, a nice feeling from this win as a Seahawks fan. It's nice to get a win. It's nice to beat the Niners because they're in our division. We don't really like them that much anyway. It's nice to beat Jimmy G. It's nice to beat Kyle Shanahan. Can't really take much else from it. We're still not in with playoff contention, but it was, at least we can be the thorn in the side of teams moving throughout the rest of the year and try and build on something. Basically, all I want now is to try and give Russell Wilson a reason to stay. That's it. That's all I can ask for. And I feel like if we win out, maybe if we win all our remaining games or maybe lose 1 or 2 more, and we win the rest, I feel like that might be enough for us to want to stick around, as long as we make some changes around the general manager or head coach position. But it was a good game overall. Like I said, without the Gerald Everett being an absolute walter, we would have wiped the floor with the Niners, absolutely destroyed them. It would have been another 20 points on top of that 30. Maybe, if you could say, maybe not, another 14 at least, which would have taken us to, 44 to their 23, which would have been a lovely day to see, to be honest.
No, I think the one takeaway is that Russ played well. I think this is the first game back where he's looked like Russ, very efficient with the ball. Only 6 missed passes and then the bobbled interception. That was a good game, and the pass to Tyler Lockett was amazing in the end zone. I feel like Russ and Rodgers make that kind of pass. Do you know that looping rainbow pass? I feel like them 2 are the guys that making that pass. Bit of finesse on the ball.
A bit of touch.
Love touching balls.
Love touching balls. And that is the end of On the Clock. Thanks for that, Dave. You educated me in some games that I didn't see last week, so appreciate it. We now move into our weekly segment. New one. Gonna test you here, Dave, and I'm hoping that you're gonna test me as well. We're gonna go into true or false. A few statements here that could be true. They could totally be false. So, I'm going to kick this one off. I want you to please tell me, true or false. There are 4 teams that are all guaranteed to make the playoffs this week if they win. Is that true? Or is that false?
Guaranteed to make the playoffs.
Yeah. So there are 4 teams in the NFL that are all guaranteed to clinch a playoff berth if they win this week.
False.
False.
Yeah.
You are correct. It is false.
I reckon there's 2 that can make the playoffs.
There are 3.
Ooh. So the
Who are they?
Packers, Cardinals.
Yeah. One more.
Bucks.
Correct. There you go, Dave. You got some
3.
knowledge in that big old head of yours.
a lot of stuff floating around this head.
So nice one. Dave, true or false? You won that one. False.
Happy days. Right then. True or false? Tom Brady has more turnovers than Daniel Jones this season.
True.
It is true.
Yeah. Have you got how many he's got?
12 Brady's
12.
got. And Daniel
How many
Jones
Daniel Jones got?
7.
Okay. So basically, Daniel Jones is better than Tom Brady.
I didn't want to say it, but you've said it.
Okay, so Brady's had 12 turnovers to Daniel Jones's 7. That's not too bad, though. I mean, good on Daniel Jones. And
it's been our
who cares if you're Tom Brady and you've got like 30-something touchdowns?
Yeah.
And you're probably the MVP. Okay, next on my true or false list. JJ Watt and TJ Watt have had the exact same number of sacks throughout the exact same number of games they played. That number of games is 72 games to start their careers. Do they have the exact same number of sacks? True or false?
How many games? 70?
So 72 games. When they both played 72 games, TJ Watt's just played his 72nd and JJ Watt played 72 games. In their first 72 games, did they have the exact same amount of sacks as each other?
See, so JJ Watt's only got like 102 sacks. 102 sacks is it's unbelievable.
Mm.
But I don't remember TJ Watt being that good over, like he was great last season.
Mm.
I'm going to say it's false and that JJ Watt has got more or had more.
So, over 72 games, their first 72 games in their careers, they both have had exactly the same amount of sacks. 65.5 sacks each in their first 72 games. What a mental statistic that is. I threw it in there because it's balmy. 2 brothers, both played 72 games and have had 65.5 sacks each in those first 72 games. Bear in mind, in those first games, I think JJ Watt probably won Defensive Player of the Year at least once in that time. But that's nuts, isn't it? However
crazy.
Many years apart, and it's a 0.5 of a sack as well, exactly the same.
That's what I mean. Like I feel like because JJ Watt, he's got to have won a couple of defensive players. He's got 3 of them.
Yeah,
he must have won. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe crazy.
Mad, isn't it?
Call me crazy. Okay.
Call me maybe.
Well, I have another one for you, and I'm going to roll off Tom Brady onto Tom Brady.
Oh yeah.
So,
like
true or false? Tom Brady has thrown more pick sixes this season than Aaron Rodgers has thrown in his entire career.
I think Aaron Rodgers has only thrown like 4 pick sixes ever, and I think Tom Brady has thrown. So he had 1 this week.
Well, I'll tell you that Aaron Rodgers has thrown 3 in his entire career.
No. That's amazing. What a wanker.
One of them is a season as well.
I'm going to say The same. I'm going to say false. I'm going to say it's the same.
It is false. Tom Brady's thrown 2 this year.
Ah, okay.
But in his career, Tom Brady's thrown 17 pick sixes.
And Rodgers has thrown 3.
3.
I mean, that's an amazing stat on Rodgers' behalf.
He's thrown 2 this year. Brady has.
Wow. Fair enough.
Crazy times.
Innit? Yeah, well, props to Rodgers. That's as much as I'm giving him. But the man is efficient. Okay. True or false? Kansas City Chiefs have the longest active winning streak in the NFL currently.
False. Patriots have.
Correct. Dave is right again. False. The New England Patriots have got a winning streak of 7. Following them are 2 other teams. One is the Chiefs.
The other is...
bonus
Packers.
point.
Packers.
No. The other is the Miami Dolphins.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yeah, because of the players.
Miami Dolphins.
Worms.
Okay, nice. Hit me with another.
Andy Dalton has more game-winning drives than Aaron Rodgers. So in the 4th quarter, this is.
Oh my God.
True or false?
That can't be true.
The Ginger Ninja has more game-winning drives in the 4th quarter than Ron Rodgers.
Can't be true. But I feel like the Packers with Rodgers have probably been in such a good position that they've not needed to win game-winning drives. And I remember the Bengals having a lot of comebacks in 2014, 15. I'm going to say it's true. I reckon he has probably got more game-winning drives.
He has.
Has he?
Andy Dalton's got more than Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, then Eli Manning. He's got more than loads of them.
Have you got the list?
Yeah,
Have you got the list? I reckon Matt Stafford's top.
No, he's not. Brady's top by about 20.
Oh, right. He's old as fuck.
Let me find it. I did have it. I think I've closed it.
I reckon Russell Wilson's in there as well.
Let me find it. But
fair enough.
He's got 28. Rodgers got 27.
Wow. Andy Dalton, the ginger assassin.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And then the last one from me then. Russell Wilson is the most winning quarterback in his first 10 seasons of football. True or false?
It's true. It's true. I feel like
I was going to be gloating with this one, but it's actually false. He's
the
second. Who is the first? So false. He's the second with 101 wins in his first 10 seasons. Who is the first?
I thought I knew that one.
I'll tell you that it's 105.
105 in his first 10 seasons.
Yeah.
It's not Brady.
It's not Brady. Brady's got 97.
It's got to be either Aaron Rodgers or Peyton Manning.
Go with one of them.
Peyton Manning.
Oh, go on, Dave. You've done it.
Is it?
That's it. It's Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning with 105. Tom Brady with 97. Rodgers is not even anywhere near the list.
Do you know?
No. And I thought I'd throw this one in there for you as well. Eli Manning made the list.
It's because Eli Manning's a goat.
86.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he was a long way down the list, don't get me wrong, but he was above Aaron Rodgers.
The game-winning drives. Oh, it's not Tom Brady at the top. It probably will be Tom Brady by the time he retires. Peyton Manning with 54.
Yeah.
Drew Brees 53. Tom Brady 51. Big Ben 51.
I mean, these are all old boys, aren't they? That's why.
Yeah, Dan Marino, Brett Favre, Matt Ryan. So Matt Ryan was drafted in 2008.
Okay.
Matt Stafford.
Yeah, I knew he'd be up there.
Yeah, he's got 40. Eli Manning 37, Sandy Rivers, Russell Wilson is 31.
Okay.
So he's drafted 2012. He's easily like the. But yeah, Rodgers is so far down there because his teams have always been pretty like you never hear of him having to come up on a game-winning drive.
No.
Right, I've got one more for you though.
Okay. Surprise one. I thought the segment was over.
Incorrect.
Bonus.
The AFC, true or false?
Okay.
The AFC East is the most successful division in the NFL history. So this is winning Super Bowls or Super Bowl appearances.
AFC East is the most winning.
So Patriots. Patriots won.
I'm going to say it's not.
Blasphemy.
Although the Bills did have a good run in the 80s, and they're in it, the Jets have always been shit. The Dolphins have been good. Oh, I'm going to change it back. I'm going to say it is.
Blasphemy. It is not.
Oh, I should have stuck with it. What is it? Your division. Is it? Don't give me that smirk.
Yeah.
You can't see the smirk on the podcast, but you can hear it. Dave's smirking because his Giants are in one of the best divisions, and it's probably only because of the Cowboys.
No, so Super Bowl wins.
Yeah.
The NFC East has 13.
Right.
AFC East has 9. So the closest one to it is 9. Then the AFC North, the NFC West has 7. And that is literally because the Niners are in your division.
Yeah, because the Niners, yeah.
So the other 13, Dallas have got 5, the Giants have got 4, Washington have got, the Wind Sox have got 3, and the Eagles have got 1. Right. And I think we're the only one that's got every team has won a Super Bowl.
Wow.
And then appearances, the NFC East and the AFC East are tied with both 21.
Jeez.
Yeah.
There you go. Always learning. Always learning.
Tough at the top. So when you fucking pundits are ripping on the AFC East, I will have you know, historically, we were all once good.
Yeah. Living in the shadows, just like the Cowboys.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, cool. That was nice. Like that. True or false segment is over. And now we move on to our Sky Sports segment. So for those who are watching in the UK or not, and you watch NFL via Sky Sports, we're going to talk about the 3 games being played this week. Me and Dave are going to give our predictions for those games, including the scores. But if you are watching in the UK and you don't often watch American football in general, stick on Sky Sports. You can either watch each one of these games separately, or on a Sunday at 6 p.m, you can press your red button, navigate to the red zone, and you can sit and listen to Scott Hansen and the bliss that is 7 hours of commercial-free football, which me and Dave do every single week. Favourite part of the week, bar none. We've actually just found a nice new little pub round the corner from us, or not round the corner, but close enough to go and have a few jars. They're playing the red zone, and they're going to be serving up wings and steaks and ribs and stuff. And we're going to go grab a nice bite to eat and start watching the red zone in this pub/bar. Can't think of anything better. If you feel like joining us, come down. What's the name of it, Dave?
Hickory's.
There we go. Search it. Hickory's Nottingham if you're about, or if not, and they're a chain, go and watch it in your local Hickory's. Snappers, Instagrammers, send us a post, show us that you're watching the red zone. It'd be fantastic. But these games on Sky Sports will be worth watching. Certainly the last one is. But we'll start with the first one that's being played on Thursday night, and that is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I can't talk. The Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Minnesota Vikings. Dave, what's happening in this one? The Steelers coming off a clutch win against the Ravens. The Vikings coming off a no clutch loss against the Lions.
I reckon the Vikings win. The Vikings win 17-6, and I'm predicting that the Steelers score no points for the first 20 minutes of the game.
As usual. Okay, cool. I think the Vikings are going to put on a few more points. Actually, Dalvin Cook's out and Thielen's out. Nah, I'm retracting that. But I still think they'll breach 20. I think they'll reach 20. Vikings 20, Steelers 17. There we go. Just make sure you write those down, Dave.
What did you say?
Vikings 20, Pittsburgh 17. I think the Vikings will win with a field goal. End of the game. Next game being played on Sunday night is the Chicago Bears. The Bears taking on the Green Bay Packers. And this is a divisional game. Bears suck, Packers are immense, and the Packers could be getting back a whole host of weapons in this one, Dave. Jair Alexander could be back. Bakhtiari could be back. And Zadarius Smith could all be back. And that just makes Green Bay even more of a force. And Chicago Bears are going to be leaning on who? Justin Fields.
Bears are going to get rolled so tightly, it's going to be like somebody rolling a Rizzler or a cigar. I don't smoke, but I don't know what you call that. But
it's going to be like a Christmas fig roll.
It's going to be like a pig tucked into the nicest blanket you've seen at Christmas. The Packers are going to dominate. The Packers are going to win 28-7.
Yeah.
Bears ain't doing nothing.
I think the Packers win 35-10.
35-10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then finally, last game on Sky Sports, definitely the best game on Sky Sports. If you're gonna watch it, watch it. That didn't make any sense today. If you're gonna watch it, and if you're not, don't. This is the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Arizona Cardinals. So this is the tip of the top of the NFC West, battling it out for first place and potential playoff implications. Both teams are absolute tanks. What's going to happen here, Dave?
The Cardinals win 24-21.
24-21 to the Cardinals. I'm going to flip the script and I'm going to say that the Rams win. I think the Rams win 30 to the Cardinals 24.
Okay. All right.
All right. And that's the games. That is it. Sky Sports, done. On the clock, done. Slap or sign, done. Thank you very much for listening, people. Do appreciate it. As you know, or you may not know, but we took a wee little rebranding last week. We've pushed ourselves to the next level, the upper echelon of podcast world. We're dropping new content constantly. And as we've said for a number of weeks now, we're going to be looking at many things, including back to basics that we're going to be looking at drafting in the off season. We'll start posting about this stuff so you can get ready and excited for it. We're going to be looking at merch, get on in the end zone branding, just like the Project Rock stuff that I've got going on now, just like Dave's sporting the Giant stuff. We're going to have Project NFL UK. We're going to have in the end zone UK stuff to be wearing. And, we just want you to get behind us, get behind it, get involved. We're enjoying bringing these podcasts to you. And we're not going to stop. So appreciate everybody listening and getting on board with us. Tell your friends, share our podcast. Be amazing to get more listeners on the poddy.
Yeah, we're going to, we've hit, like Dom says, hit the upper echelon of podcasts. It's basically Joe Rogan and us neck and neck.
Yeah, Joe Rogan's chasing.
Top spot. So I've been giving him some shit on Instagram and Twitter, but, we're probably going to pump some polls out as well on Instagram. to just see if there's anything else, or just pose some questions. If you guys want to see something that we're talking about, if you've got a favourite team that you think we're giving no love to, and you feel like we should focus a bit more time on them, there's no issues with that whatsoever. Let us know, and we can start specialising it a little bit and teaching it towards what you guys who are listening want to hear, rather than just our two dulcet tones bombing off the Seahawks. I nearly the Eagles, the Seahawks and the Giants.
Definitely not the Eagles.
Yeah, no. If you're an Eagles fan, keep it to yourself.
But yeah, exactly right.
I did see a bloke in Tesco the other day with an Eagles hat on. I just stared at him.
I'd have thrown an egg at him.
He walked away. But no, yeah. So we'll pump some stuff out on Instagram. Say just some polls maybe about stuff that we think is working on the podcast. But if you don't think it is, then your suggestions will build this, and like I say, it needs to be relevant to what you lot want to listen to. Otherwise, you ain't gonna listen.
Yeah.
Like if you're not going to watch it, well, if you're going to watch it. If you can listen to it, you can listen to it.
Exactly. Yeah. Tell us what you want to hear. We want to hear it. We want to know. And, we want to keep giving you what you want to hear every week. This has been In the End Zone UK. Thank you for listening. Stay safe. Take it easy. Peace.
See you later.